If you're holding out for a next-gen laptop, it's looking like the GPUs could be good and we could be having a good battle between NVIDIA and AMD this time around. So what are our current leaks? Because again, this is very much still in the territory of leaks and rumors. AMD is not officially giving out this information yet, and NVIDIA is also not officially talking about their laptops yet. So we're seeing this title here from WCCF Tech saying AMD's fastest Radeon RX 7000 RDNA3 laptop GPU could offer RX 6950 XT and RTX 3090 levels of performance. Now, what is their source for this information, since we're clearly not getting it from AMD themselves? Well, it turns out it's our favorite Digimon over on Twitter, Greymon55. So Greymon likes to leak a lot of information regarding, hardware, but especially it seems to be AMD hardware a lot. And we're seeing the little laptop logo and approximately 6950 XT levels of performance. Now, so again, you just have to kind of understand in context that he would probably be talking about, the new AMD laptops, that kind of a thing. And again, not a lot of details there, all of that. Now, if you just want to get an idea of, okay, well, what does that even mean? If we look at a relative performance chart over here, I think what they're saying is that, usually laptop GPUs are slower than their desktop counterparts. So the highest end laptop GPUs of this previous generation were not up to par with like the 6950 XT from the actual desktop chips, which was where that was topping out. Now, in rasterized performance, if we're not talking ray tracing, the 6950 XT was giving the 3090 a run for its money, and depending on the game and the resolution, sometimes even, giving the 3090 Ti a run for its money. So that is seriously powerful. The previous generations of laptop GPUs, I think, while they weren't called a 6700 XT, I think if you're comparing to desktop levels of performance, that's about where they topped out. But I will admit I'm not too focused on the laptop market myself, so excuse me if I'm making any mistake on that performance comparison. Now, we're also getting some information, though, coming from, well, we've got our favorite old Kopite 7 Kimi. So these guys are back at it again. We've got Greymon and Kopite talking about our future upcoming products. And so this is like a series of tweets going on here. We've got Harukaze, who has tweeted various leaks in the past as well, talking about RTX 4090, giving us some GPU, like the model number, the code name, whatever you want to call it, and some power figures. And these are all figures that I think we've actually seen before, I think even tweeted from Kopite. And then we're getting REHWK. Now, I've got to say, I am less familiar with this source. I can't remember if I've seen this one before in our leaks and rumors mill. But looks like giving us a screenshot here of GPUs and their marketing naming. So this seems to be going along with these, showing like GN21X11, marketing naming RTX 4090. And this is actually interesting because, again, these X chips are mobile, right? So we're talking mobile here, as far as we know, right? So these X chips are mobile. So what we're seeing here is that it looks like we're seeing the 90 class naming scheme brought into the mobile space, which is interesting. Although notice that if this is correct, this is 8103, not 8102. So it's looking like the highest end mobile chips will not be based off of 8102, which is what like our desktop class, RTX 4090 is, what our top end chips are there. And odds are it's just too power hungry for, fitting into a laptop form factor nicely. Looks like this rumored version of the 4090 is already going up to 175 watts, which in a laptop form factor, I mean, that's a lot of power. Now, Kopite is adding to this conversation with the little emoji here, and battle with RX 7900M, and he's saying it has performance like RTX 3090. Now, technically, you could interpret this a couple of ways. It's probably most likely he does mean the RX 7900M has performance like RTX 3090. Although you could also take it being referred to what he's replying to up here. Although, I think it's more likely he's talking about the RX 7900M here in context. Anyway, It'd be nice. Could these guys on Twitter use more words and fewer emojis? I don't know. Communicate more clearly. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that that would be saying 7900M performance like the 3090 seems to fit in with what we're seeing here. With, Greymon 55 implying that our laptop AMD chip would be around a 6950 XT, because again, if you jump to the relative performance chart, the 6950 XT and the 3090 are neck and neck, again, depending on which game, what exactly you're doing with it, what resolution you're playing at lower resolutions, it might even be faster, that kind of a thing. So anyway, basically all we're saying is the usual suspects of Twitter hardware leakers seem to be in agreement that the newest RDNA laptop chips will be out, around that 6950 XT to 3090 class performance, although doing it for significantly less power draw than what we saw from, obviously those desktop chips. That's why you couldn't put that performance in a laptop last time around. So how about the desktop chips then? If the laptop chips are going to be that good, do we have any new information on the RX 7900 XT? And the answer is yes. Well, if you believe the source, again, with all of this stuff, you have to, evaluate your sources. So the claim here is that the RDNA3 graphics card, the 7900 XT, is going to be a 20 gigabyte card with GDDR6 memory, and that's actually cut down from previous rumors where we've heard 24 gigabytes. And what we're hearing in this article is that that's because there's still going to be a higher end version, which we would assume would probably be called a 7950 XT. And that one could still be having the full 24 gigabytes. Now, the source here is WCCF Tech, where I'm getting this article. They are citing their own sources. Now, again, I've been following, all the hardware leaks and rumors very closely for at least a couple years now on the channel. And the channel is right about 2 years old now. Anyway, and the point is that WCCF Tech absolutely has leaked accurate information citing their own sources in the past. However, I have also seen their leaked information citing their own sources come out a little bit off in the past as well, off the top of my head. So I would grade this as this is very plausible. I would give some credence to this, but it's not a sure thing if I was rating the accuracy of this rumor. But this all does sound pretty plausible. Now, what they're saying here is, again, that this 7900 XT won't be the top model, right? This will be 20 gigabytes of GDDR6. As they say, their source reports that Radeon RX 7000 RDNA3 GPUs may exceed expectations. We've seen conflicting rumors. They're talking about how we've seen at least one source saying that they're actually going to underperform, they're going to struggle to compete, but we've seen another more recent leak saying double the performance of, they said double the performance. Now, they didn't reference whether that's the 6900 XT or 6950 XT or whatever, but double the performance and more than double the performance in ray tracing. So, that sounds pretty impressive. And so that we're saying here, again, according to WCCF Tech's source, it looks like the end result might be a far better product than anticipated. We have also come to know, again, probably from this source, that the AMD Radeon 7900 XT originally featured 24 gigabytes of memory before being downgraded to 20 because the full-fat 24 gigabyte top Navi 31 bin would be aimed at the full-fat Ada die. In other words, what they're saying here is they feel like they can not only compete with the 4090, they feel like they can compete with the 4090 Ti, which a lot of people weren't sure if that was going to happen. Again, this is their sources. I don't know, right? Anyway, but it's fun to speculate. So they're saying AMD seems very confident that with the 20 gigabyte and slightly cut down MCM chip, they will sit in a comfortable position against the 4090 and maybe even outperform it in pure rasterization performance while bringing a big jump in RT performance versus the existing RDNA2 GPUs. Now, let me weigh in here a little bit. Again, let's look at some of these performance charts. So, compared to the 6900 XT, we had a 16 gigabyte graphics card. It was competitive with the 3090, that type of thing. if you did allow that 2 times performance jump, that would put it well ahead of the RTX 4090 in rasterized performance. Now, I feel like if there is a 2 times performance jump, that's going to be in particular games or maybe synthetic benchmarks, best case scenarios. Remember, we saw a lot of rumors of the RTX 4090 doubling the performance of the 3090. And there are a few scenarios where that might be true, but on average, it was closer to a 60% performance uplift, something around there. And depending on the game, 50 to 70% is more typical if you're not weighing in the new features like, generating frames with DLSS 3. So anyway, if we're hearing rumors of doubling this performance, I think maybe, best case scenarios, but then putting that into the 4090-ish category does seem fairly reasonable, especially if you're getting that 50% performance per watt. We're jumping to a new node. There's a lot of optimizations to the architecture, all of that. Doesn't seem crazy, but now let's start speculating on price. Now, to be clear here, I'm just speculating on price because I don't think that AMD themselves even know the price yet. Usually pricing is a kind of a last minute decision. They want to read the current market conditions. And quite frankly, companies want to charge as much money as they think they possibly can, right? Their goal, neither company, NVIDIA nor AMD, is your friend, and they are not trying to give you a good deal. They are trying to make money. But I feel like AMD is in a very different position than NVIDIA when regarding how aggressively they can price. And that's because AMD's previous generation chips are selling at a lot cheaper prices on the current market than NVIDIA's chips are. And so what that means is, well, both companies still need to sell their previous generation of stock. And that's a big part of why NVIDIA priced the 4090 and is pricing the 4080 so high, is so that they can price it above and in line with, right, in a price to performance standpoint, the current pricing of the RTX 3000 series. Now, let's say AMD takes that same strategy and tries to price in line with, kind of price to performance, or in other words, but based on the current market price, not MSRPs, but market price of like the 6900 XT, for example. Well, finding 6900 XTs for sale, brand new, for less than $700 has not been difficult. I'm checking right now, and they're in stock for $670 right now. And now if you look at the 6950 XT, which is actually their current top model, those still generally cost a bit more. You can find them for around $800, sometimes less. I've seen them go down, I think closer to $700 if I'm right. And then when you look at the next step down in their lineup with like the 6800 XT, for example, 6800 XTs for the mid $500 range, brand new, again, is not difficult right now. Whereas if you compare that with the RTX, 3080, the 3080 is still selling usually well over $700. And then you've still got to deal with like 3080 Ti's, which are still well over $800. And NVIDIA still needs to sell RTX 3090s, which still cost almost $1,000 new, and 3090 Ti's, which are still, you can get them around $1,000. These current prices that are showing up here don't look that great. But the point is, the pricing that AMD is going to have to price against is their own pricing to sell their own chips. And so I think that they can afford to take a more aggressive price. Now, that being said, AMD does tend to like to price as high as they think they can in the market conditions with both their CPUs and their GPUs. Remember, comparing MSRPs of the RX 6000 series versus the RTX 30 series, AMD did not price much lower by MSRP than NVIDIA did. The market dictated that their prices go lower because, quite frankly, NVIDIA is viewed as a more premium brand. They have more market share, and there are certain things that NVIDIA just has been better at with professional application support. They still have a reputation for better drivers, things like that. Now, the other thing we could look at is, okay, so what were the MSRPs? Because the thing is, NVIDIA had already got people used to an RTX 3090, launching at like $1,500. The 6900 XT actually launched at $1,000. I think do I not have it listed here? Anyway, the point is, oh yeah, here it is. The 6900 XT MSRP'd at $1,000, which was already a huge markup and was not great value compared to the 6800 XT. And then AMD has gone with the 6950 XT. They have priced as high as $1,100, again with the MSRP. But again, they have never priced anything in the $1,500 price range, at least its MSRP, right? Whereas NVIDIA had already done so with the 3090 and then increased the price a bit from there for the 4090. So I guess what I'm saying here is, you know, what if AMD priced their top-end chip at like $1,200? What if they bump it up $100 from where the current highest MSRP they've ever listed, right? They go up $100 from there. Then, you know, that's kind of in line with what they've done in the past. You know, the 6950 XT was $100 more than the 6900 XT. And then when you look at current pricing again, they still need to sell their 6900 XTs, but their 6900 XTs are under $700 right now, right? So if I had to guess pricing, $1,200 is interesting because it puts AMD's 7900 XT pricing MSRP-wise against the 4080, not the 4090. And it probably will have worse ray tracing performance, no doubt, than the 4090 and probably than the 4080. We'll have to wait and see. And again, it still gives room to sell their cheaper 6000 series cards. So if I had to guess, that's my predicting the future. Now, why don't we go ahead and run in a few more things here real quick as well. We are seeing Asus launching the GeForce RTX 3060 Ti with the GDDR6X memory. I've already reported that Video Cards claims synthetic benchmarks show it with a 7 to 10% performance improvement, but we have yet to see that in games. But it is looking like that is actually a thing now. We are seeing it pictured and listed with the GDDR6X memory now from Asus. So interesting stuff. This is real. This is happening. Now, another interesting note. So EVGA is not in the GPU business anymore, but some people used EVGA's Precision X1 software for overclocking their GPUs. Well, it looks like they have updated it for RTX 4090 support, despite the fact that they're not producing 4090s, and EVGA is not claiming that they're going to continue updating the software in any major way. But it's interesting to see that. So if you're still using EVGA Precision and wanted to use it on your 4090, I mean, you can, although personally I might switch off of that if you were using it. We're seeing AMD Ryzen 7 7700 non-X CPU, so we're talking CPUs now, which would be an 8-core CPU, but at a much lower power budget, a 65-watt CPU. And this would be really interesting. And now this is coming from another hardware leaker, so this is not official. This is 7700, the tweet just says 7700 865, so this would obviously imply 7700 non-X, 8-core, 65-watt. But with this emoji, is this speculation or is this claiming that this is a real thing? Now this is Momomo US on Twitter, which I believe we have seen leak things in the past. Can't recall their exact track record, but I would love to see AMD start to get some lower power budget that'll still, guys, you know, with the power scaling on these things, you could draw back the power a lot and not lose a lot of performance. And if they also bring that in with a lower cost, you know, I really think AMD's CPUs need to be cheaper. Really, the motherboards need to get cheaper too. But anyway, I'm holding out for the X3Ds. Now, Gigabyte is announcing an instant 6 GHz feature for the Intel Core i9-13900K CPUs on their Z790 motherboards. Apparently, with the BIOS update, you can just click a couple settings in their BIOS, and they're calling it an instant 6 GHz on the clock frequencies. So they're saying it'll give you an additional 3% performance boost on one single core and provides an OC edition-like experience on the 13900K processor. Anyway, so if you have a 13900K on a Gigabyte board, you might want to look into that BIOS update if you're interested in an instant 6 GHz. Now, AMD is delivering an optional driver update. It looks like this is coming with a number of fixed driver issues. So if you're suffering from any of these issues listed here, you might want to download one of those download this driver update. Now, a Newegg customer on Reddit is claiming that they sent him an RTX 4090 box with weights inside rather than a GPU. Gamers Nexus has tweeted, or not tweeted, but maybe it was a tweet too, but at least on a YouTube community post that I saw, has claimed that they're looking into this, so we'll see what happens. Now, I don't want to, obviously Newegg's done some shady things in the past, but you also have to question, it is possible to buy a 4090, take the GPU out, put some weights in the box, and get some attention on Reddit for just claiming this happened. So you don't want to assume guilty until, assume guilty when it hasn't been proven. But this certainly looks bad, and Newegg does have some history of some questionable customer relations and whatnot recently. Anyway, I hope all of you have an excellent day.